Good evening. Cindy and Wendy here at the Pearl Ruckus 2014, hosted by Pearl Guide, Jeremy and Hisano Shepherd of Pearl Paradise. And we're very fortunate to have, and I don't call her an artist, I call her an artiste, Sheri Jurnecka, who is she is so creative, she's beyond being an artist.
Thank you.
I adore your creations.
Thank you so much. And do you want to introduce Clyde?
And this is Clyde, the world traveler Clyde.
International Monkey of Mystery.
And he always comes. He's a world traveler.
He is. So he fits in wherever he goes. Since he is at the Pearl Gathering, he is wearing appropriate pearls for the occasion.
Let's start by talking about the exquisite necklace you have on this evening.
Well, thank you. This necklace is a piece, it's one of my newest pieces. I did not fabricate it, but I designed it. It features a horn-shaped natural Paua abalone pearl from New Zealand, a Mabe cultured abalone pearl from New Zealand, excuse me. I had both of these pieces for some years. I recently made a trip to India and had a jeweler acquaintance that I knew in Delhi where I was staying for an extra day. So I designed the piece reminiscent of Edwardian, an Edwardian aesthetic. I wanted something that was somewhat primitive and tribal looking, but also had a vintage historical look to it as well. And so I drew up the design, and fortunately I had a jeweler acquaintance in Delhi who was able to collaborate with me. So it's featuring these pearls, again, one of them natural, one of them cultured, and it's set in oxidized silver with tiny diamonds.
Okay, I want to show this hand.
This hand.
Oh, I thought you had on your interchangeable ring.
Sorry, I changed
well,
for dinner.
Next time.
This happens to be a vintage piece that I got some time ago.
All right, here's what we're going to talk about. Please explain to our Pearl Guide viewers this.
Okay, this is a piece I was inspired to make by a monstrous pearl that was posted on the Pearl Paradise blog by Jeremy and Hisano, featuring this enormous 55mm plus, and for those who aren't metric, that's about 2.5 inches long, this enormous freshwater freeform Baroque pearl that they had acquired at a show in Hong Kong. I have a tendency to love giant, I call them monster pearls. I happen to be over 6 feet tall myself. Well, I've shrunk, so I'm 6 feet tall these days. So it's all a matter of scale, but I like really large pearls. And so I'm always asking them to search for wonderful, enormous pearls for me. I sent Jeremy a message on Facebook asking if they had found my dream pearl at the recent Hong Kong show. And he responded, "Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't find the ultimate monster pearl for you, but have you seen this one?" And he referred me to the blog. I actually had seen the blog entry previously, but I didn't think there was any chance that I would ever possibly be able to acquire this pearl because, among other things, Hisano is holding it, and Hisano, being a jeweler and designer herself, I figured she had ideas for this pearl. A few other people had already mentioned ideas that they had, so I didn't even post a comment about it.
Didn't he say something about, do you have an idea of what this should be, or
something? Again, I got...
Because I remember this pearl.
Yes, I got on... He did, and people had a few ideas, but I didn't even deign to comment because I didn't think there would be any chance I could ever get this pearl. So I checked with Jeremy to find out if he had found the monster pearl for me. He said he hadn't, asked if I'd seen this one, and I said, well, yes, I saw that. And it was so beautiful, and I said, wow, have you seen the other creations I've done with pearls? So I'm going to backtrack actually and show this one because I sent him a photograph of some creations I had made using freeform Baroque pearls.
Here, let me hold it for you.
Yes, freeform Baroque pearls incorporated in Renaissance style designs
And so my hippocampus.
Your hippocampus.
Is that the precursor to this?
That is a precursor. I made that around the same time as I made this, and I sent Jeremy a photograph of a larger version that I had made incorporating a pearl in the design. These were made using metallic Dresden papers, and I incorporated the pearls in those designs. But I told Jeremy, oh my, if I could get my hands on a pearl like this one, I would be inspired to get back into working in metal. And so his response was, well, do you want it? And I said, well, yes. So there were a few more communications back and forth. To cut to the chase, I acquired this pearl with the caveat that I make something incredible with it, and allow Jeremy to post it on his Pearl Guide blog. So
I see that there's several different components here. Did you drill it?
I did not drill the pearl. I wanted to keep the pearl entirely intact. I didn't want to in any way blemish.
And it's framed.
Blemish the pearl.
Is it wearable?
It is absolutely wearable. It has, you'll see, the piece is made out of, it's a freshwater pearl and with oxidized sterling silver. The setting I made in the lost wax casting process, as well as some fabrication after the fact. It was cast in 5 pieces. I then had to put it together. So once I put it together, I did metal casting as well as metal fabrication techniques, added some prongs. I wanted to not have to drill the pearl. I wanted to maintain the integrity of this jewel. So down the line, who knows, 200 years from now, maybe somebody won't like a leafy sea dragon and they'll want to make it into a frogfish or a swan or something else. They could take this apart. And so the pearl is exactly as it was. It has some glue on it, which could be removed. And in order to make it wearable, because I always intended to make it wearable, I didn't intend to have it just a static object to show on the wall. It actually has I fabricated 3 stud pin backs. It needed 3 pin backs so you could place it on fabric and it would sag, and it would not sag, and it would
not tip forward. Evenly
distribute the weight. There are 5 ounces of silver in that piece, plus the weight of the pearl, which is solid. So it's a heavy piece.
Okay, you are a designer. Is this piece for sale?
This piece is one of a kind. It is not for sale.
Okay.
But I'm inspired by the form of the piece, or by the form of the pearls, by the materials. I spent some time studying that pearl before it told me what it wanted to be. And I love being inspired by the natural forms of things and trying to create, I love nature and animals, and create an object that will complement the pearl. So if anybody has the glorious mutant pearl that they spend a couple hours looking at and they decide this needs to be a certain sort of creature, please keep me in mind, share your vision with me, and I'll do whatever I can to make it a reality.
And I notice lots of
more creatures.
Indeed. So tell us about these.
Okay, this I love cephalopods. I am an avid scuba diver. Also happen to be a part-time artiste and also a volunteer diver in my local aquarium in San Francisco. And so I love octopus. This actually is what got me back into doing lost wax casting. My first experience doing casting was when I was a teenager. And I've done some intermittently over the years, but it had been quite a few years since I'd done any. And so I wanted to do a piece incorporating a pearl, again, integrating the pearl as part of the overall design of the piece. So I acquired this freshwater Keishi pearl from John Tu, and I made this is cast in bronze, so it's a rather stylized cephalopod, an octopus. I wear it as a pendant. So that's what that piece is. This is the first piece I've done recently that got me back into casting and that got me starting to work on a larger scale. And this is, after I did this, I realized how much I enjoyed the sculptural aspect. It's jewelry, but I view it as wearable art because obviously it's large.
It is art.
It's large. If you feel like you're not up to wearing something like this as a pendant, pin it on a hat. You know, I made the hat as well, by the way.
I know.
But you could pin it on a hat. You could put it on a wall as a decoration. But I'm not a small person. I like dramatic things. And I find working on a slightly larger scale...
I like that as a pen.
Yeah, working on a slightly larger scale gives me much more freedom in the sculptural aspect of it. So that's what got me into working in wax. The next piece I made was this piece. And then after that, I had an 18 millimeter pearl in my archives for quite a while. I took it out of a ring I got on eBay. I wanted a really big pearl to set into an octopus head. And I always thought I was going to have somebody else do it. And then I decided I wanted to do it myself. So this also is done, it's a wax casting. I sculpted the piece out of wax. It's very detailed, has all the bits and suction cups on the underside. I did what I could to make it biologically correct. It has 2 rows of suction cups. I haven't counted them, but it has many little suction cups on its tentacles. Although for octopus they're actually called arms. But so this is the one. At this point, I've only affixed the pearl in there with museum wax because I was pleased with the way this turned out, and I would like to be able to reproduce this in other materials, potentially make it in bronze. This is
very heavy.
It's a heavy piece. It's not as
so
large.
How would you wear that?
I would wear this. I made a point of making this so it could be worn. It could be suspended from a chain or a cord. I think it would look nice on like a leather cord.
There's a loop right there.
The top arm, it's actually not even closed.
Yeah,
so you could
hook
you could use it actually as an enhancer because it's not a closed loop. It's a hook. So a thick chain, a cord could go over there. It could be used as an enhancer. It also has, I made a point of making this bottom tentacle closed, both for the possibility of also using it to suspend it in another fashion if one wanted, or to dangle things down from it, like it was holding things.
It would be like this.
To make it quite dramatic. But again, it's a small wearable sculpture. That's the way I see it.
Well, let's talk about this one.
All right. This piece I call Maleficent's Heart after the movie Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty.
So you wear it like this.
You wear it like that, or it could be worn on a long chain. And this is just a question of me putting things together. I find interesting pearls, interesting stones, and I look at them and think of what they want to be. And I tend to work.
Where did you find these pearls?
I found those pearls at Gem Fair in Santa Rosa from John Tu. It was the first time I had met this pearl dealer. I'd heard about him for ages.
He is mentioned frequently in
Yes.
the Pearl Guide.
I friended him on Facebook, asked him when I could ever see him, and he told me he would be at a show about an hour's drive from where I live, and so I arranged to go and see him. And these are really unusual freshwater pearls. And everybody sees them differently. Some people see them as Chinese characters. Some people see them as dancers. I immediately saw these as wings, and I immediately had the idea I like weird heart versions of whatever, spiky hearts, grumpy hearts, happy hearts. Winged hearts are always a theme. I have a winged heart on my back, a tattoo. Mm-hmm. But I saw this as kind of spindly, spiky wings that would go on sort of an evil heart. And I had initially planned on sculpting a heart and casting it, but as it turned out, an acquaintance of mine who works in polymer clay had some of her own pieces cast in bronze and shibuishi. I had this heart in my archive, so I can't take credit for the sculpting of that. It actually happens to be exactly what I would have done. I had it already, so I put it together, and it just evolved. It became that piece.
Mm-hmm. Okay, look at this.
Oh, that looks Art Nouveau.
Very much. I love Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau is my absolute favorite artistic style. Art Nouveau, unfortunately, is what got me out of making jewelry for a while. I've been making jewelry for many years, and I did this probably almost 30 years ago. I hate to admit
Really?
that. I hate to admit that because it makes me feel old. But I made this almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, but you're a lot younger than me.
Well, thank you. I'm not. but I made this. I made this before I was married, and I'm coming up on my 25th anniversary. This I have always loved the Art Nouveau style, and I was doing a lot of jewelry fabrication. I became intrigued by and started collecting antique jewelry. And I was intrigued by the use of insects in Victorian, beetles specifically in Victorian jewelry. And I had the idea that I wanted to use, as they did, beetles as jewels. So I found a local source. It's a place in Berkeley called the Bone Room, where they sell bugs. That was my first time that the start of me getting over my bug phobia. And because the owner of the store is wonderful, and the first time I went in there, he handed me an enormous cricket in my hand that looked like a cartoon character.
Was it live or not?
It was live. Yeah, with big eyes. It was lovely. And
Did you scream?
no, he made me very brave. And
Was it a test?
I think it was a test. And I have had him hand me since then large rhino beetles of the live variety. And it's been wonderful because insects are fascinating creatures. And so I started looking through his drawers of insects. It's very difficult to find the little tortoise beetles that they used in the Victorian times, although I've subsequently found some at a shop in Paris. But it's easier to find these sort of beetles. In any event, I spent a lot of time looking through drawers of dead insects. And
Wow.
I made a number of pieces actually, featuring real insects set in jewelry, either set in jewelry as stones, or I would cast them and reproduce them in metal. But I like being able to set them in jewelry. So when I say that Art Nouveau both inspired me but stopped me from making jewelry, I did make this piece very much in an Art Nouveau style. And it does feature some pearls as well. I did wire wrapping. This was long before I ever became a real pearl aficionado. But I made this piece out of copper and bronze. I made a number of Art Nouveau inspired pieces. Then I started collecting the real thing, and I have to admit I got somewhat disillusioned because I felt like I would never be able to come close to the level of craftsmanship and artistry that they achieved in the Art Nouveau period. And it got me off making jewelry for quite some time, actually. And I became a big collector. And so I have a rather extensive collection of Art Nouveau jewelry pieces, a lot of enamel, plique-à-jour, and a lot of organic pieces. And it's been in the last 10 years or so that I've gotten back into it, and I have begun to learn some of the traditional techniques, among them plique-à-jour enamel, other enameling techniques, and realize that you can be inspired by things, but do your own thing with it, and you don't have to. There are plenty of people that can copy these things. But I want to be inspired by these things and take it a step further. And so this is where I'm thoroughly enjoying inspiration from Baroque.
So if someone wants to commission something from you, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can find me. They're welcome to email me. Most of my more recent creations can be found in galleries on my Facebook, and my name is Sheri Jurnecka, Jurnecka. Not too many of us. A few in the Czech Republic, but I'm the only Sheri. And I have a website, JurneckaCreations.com, although it's been many years since I've updated that. So on a happy note, any photos of me are extraordinarily flattering, but it primarily focuses on custom corsetry and costumes, which I continue to do. But if anybody had any interest, probably the best way is send me an email, and you can email me through my website, through Facebook, JurneckaCreations@gmail.com. And I would love to work with people, especially if you have a vision of what you want to do. If you have a special piece, a special totem animal. Again, these are things that have been inspired by Art Nouveau. They used a lot of natural plants and animal imagery. I love incorporating pearls and stones and things. I have quite a fair amount of knowledge as far as stones as well as pearls. And I just would love to work with people, because how much jewelry can I have? A lot. But I'd like to have other people be able to realize their dreams as well.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. And Clyde.
And Clyde. Cindy and Wendy at the Pearl Ruckus.
Thank you.